What's up? We're back at it here today, everybody. And we're jumping back in on a case we haven't talked about in a while. The criminal case is still ongoing for Courtney Clenney, the OnlyFans model, who has been charged with a crime against her ex-boyfriend. And she has pled not guilty and said it was done in self-defense. And while that is the criminal side and what's going on, recently a civil lawsuit has been filed. And what's interesting, in my home state of Florida, that's where the lawsuit's filed, that's where this case is happening. I think it was over 100,000 lawsuits were filed before a tort reform bill came down as new law in Florida. We filed a bunch of cases. A bunch of other firms filed a bunch of cases. And I happen to know this law firm that filed this case very well. And the lead attorney on this case is a good buddy of mine named Kim Wald. And if you remember back to when I was doing the mock trial competition, I posted some photos on our community page. She is on the Young Lawyers board with me. She was involved in putting on that mock trial, and you can see her in those pictures together and us hanging out. And she works for a great firm here in Florida. And actually one of the partners of the firm is the upcoming, I think this year or next year, going to be the president of the Florida Justice Association, which is the Personal Injury Trial Lawyers Association. And their firm focuses on negligent security. And this specific civil case here against Courtney Clenney and other defendants is a really interesting read, and we can learn a lot. I think you guys are going to enjoy this discussion because it's not just a general wrongful death case where she's being sued for battery or for assault. Actually, there is no claim for assault or battery or an intentional killing here in the civil lawsuit. I might have added it as a count. They didn't. We will talk about why, and we will talk about all those things. So, one last thing I wanted to say. So hit that like button if you guys haven't already, and subscribe to our channel if you're interested in this case, because either next week or the week after, whenever it feels right and whenever you guys are kind of interested, and if you do want this to happen, I'm going to have Kim come on the show and talk about this complaint and this case a little bit, and talk about negligent security, and talk about why and how they chose the entities they did to sue for the wrongful death of Christian Obumseli. And we know the criminal system. We know sometimes they get it right, sometimes they get it wrong. We trust the system, we trust jurors, but that's not the only form of justice, especially in the state of Florida, that a victim of an act like this can get. There are civil remedies available, and that is what we're going to look at today. And we've looked at some cases like this, and I'm going to pull up the complaint, and we've seen some similar scenarios. And, again, one of them is in my home state of Florida, again, talking Gabby Petito, where her death sprung civil legal action, and multiple civil lawsuits were filed in connection with that against Brian Laundrie himself, who was the person that actually committed the act, Courtney Clenney in this case. And we can see all the defendants, but also Brian Laundrie's parents, and we've been following that, intentional infliction of emotional distress, but also negligence on law enforcement, the Moab Police Department outside of my home state of Florida. So there are a lot of different parties that are potentially liable when something like this happens. And I think I already said hit the like button and subscribe. If I didn't, go ahead and do that. And let me know if you are new here because of this case. But in this case, it's the estate of Christian Obumseli, but there are a lot of defendants. And who are they, you might ask? A condo association, a real estate company, a protection service, a security service, and then, of course, Courtney Clenney, whose name we do recognize. So we're going to dig into this complaint and see, because I had some questions on Twitter already. And if you want to follow me on Twitter or Instagram at Tragos Law, we kind of hit a wall on Instagram. We were trying to get to 20K. We broke 18 and then just kind of stopped. So if you want to give us a follow on there, that'd be cool. But when we posted this, a lot of you had questions as to what can she even get? I didn't realize somebody threw something on my chair and I was just sitting on it. What can she even get? What is the purpose of this? Why would she do this? Or he or his estate? Why would they do this? And then, of course, the question of if she's not guilty in the criminal case, how will that affect the civil case? Well, you've come to the right place if you have those questions. So the complaint. The general allegation, it's over $50,000. I promise you that's just a jurisdictional amount. They are going to ask for much, much more. The plaintiff, Chio Obumseli, will soon be the duly appointed, qualified, and acting PR of the estate. So it's Christian Obumseli who passed, and his estate will have a PR. That's his family member. And they're bringing it under the wrongful death statute. At the time of his death, Christian Obumseli resided here. The estate will be pending in Miami-Dade County. Welcome to all the new members, by the way, going across the bottom of the screen. At all material times, the defendant, now we're going to get into who these defendants are. Aleros Capital Investment, Inc., owned, operated, management, maintained, and or controlled the premises where this happened. I'll just say subject premise is what it's called. Next, One Paraiso Condominium, I think that's supposed to say condominium association, was and is a Florida for-profit corporation whose principal address is also the building of the subject premises. At all times, at all material times, defendant, One Paraiso Condominium Association, operated, managed, maintained, and controlled the condo complex. So these are the businesses that owned or maintained or controlled or managed the building where these acts occurred. First Service Residential, again, owned, operated, managed. Universal Protection Service was and is a Florida for-profit corporation, and they provided security services to the subject building, One Paraiso. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong. Then, of course, we have Courtney Clenney, who lived there. And here we go. Some factual allegations. Christian Obumseli was lawfully in One Paraiso. Christian Obumseli was fatally stabbed while within the subject premises. That's all the factual allegations we get. Now, there's going to be more in the counts, but he was there lawfully. He wasn't breaking in. He wasn't trespassing. He wasn't doing anything wrong. He was there lawfully, and he was stabbed on the premises. So let's get to count one. Negligence against Aleros Real Estate. And I will just tell you, counts 1 through 4 are all the same. They're all negligence against all these different business entities. Negligence against this one. So we're just going to read through count 1, and then we'll jump to count 5, which is Courtney Clenney's, which is also interesting. All right. At all material times, I'm sorry, I'm used to our complaints. We saw at all times material here too, is what we usually say. Aleros Real Estate LLC, through its agents and employees, owed a duty to the residents and invitees of the subject premises to exercise reasonable and ordinary care to keep and maintain subject premises in a reasonably safe condition. So what do we call that first paragraph? We call that duty. In negligence claims, what are the elements? We should know this by now. Duty, breach of that duty, causation, meaning it caused harm, which are damages. Duty, breach, causation, damages. That's duty. In particular, Aleros had a duty to take such precautions as were reasonably necessary to protect the subject premises residents and invitees, including Christian Obumseli, from reasonably foreseeable criminal attacks. So I think it actually might be better if I wait until Kim comes on to ask about some of the changes in the law as it comes with negligent security. That might be a more fun discussion. But it has changed and become more difficult since the law changed, which was after this complaint was filed. And I think that's important to bring up. This has been filed under more favorable laws in Florida than we may have in place right now. Aleros, through its agents and employees, knew, okay, here's the knew or should have known, knew or in the exercise of reasonable care should have known that no individual, including Christian Obumseli, had it within their power to take the measures necessary to provide for their own security on the premises. Now, are we going to agree with that? We'll talk about that some. We'll talk about what duty building owners should or could have. In light of the foregoing, and at all material times, the criminal attack and stabbing of Christian Obumseli was reasonably foreseeable. Do you agree with that? That's going to be kind of the bulk of our discussion. Was the criminal attack by Courtney Clenney reasonably foreseeable to Aleros Real Estate, to the company that owned the building, the condo association that ran it or maintained it, the security that they had there? Was it reasonably foreseeable? And were these companies in a superior position to appreciate such hazards and take necessary steps to prevent harm? Because that's the big question. Let me know what you think. Do you think it was reasonably foreseeable? And we'll talk about what evidence they may have that it was. Actually, let's just talk about it now. So what makes something reasonably foreseeable? Number one, we have the elevator video where she's physically assaulting him. We have photos of him with injuries prior to this day. We have the cops being called. We have mutual complaints going back and forth. So was it reasonably foreseeable? Maybe. But just because it's reasonably foreseeable that something bad may happen doesn't mean that the building could or should do something to prevent it, right? So I see a lot of you jumping to certain conclusions, and I understand you're kind of jumping down the road a little bit, which is totally understandable, saying like the building is not a babysitter, the building can't protect people from themselves, and I get that. And at some point, we got to let adults be adults. That's what people are saying in the comments. I totally understand that. EJ, where do we draw the line for involvement? I'm with you. I am with you. We're going to talk about that stuff. But is it reasonably foreseeable? I think the answer is at least potentially that these acts are reasonably foreseeable to the building. So let's keep reading. Aleros and all the other companies in different counts, by and through its agents and employees, breached its duty to exercise reasonable care for the safety and protection of its residents and invitees, including Christian Obumseli, and acted in a careless and negligent manner through the following acts of omission or commission. Hold on one second. So here is the allegations now. What did they do wrong? What should or could they have done? Right? That's the question. Sorry, I'm getting somebody texting me that they're at my house. And here is what they're alleging. The building, condo association, security team failed to provide adequate security for subject premises, residents, invitees, and for the public. So if there was more security, and these are all questions I'm asking you, okay? If there was more security, would that have prevented what happened? I don't know. What do you guys think? Number two, failing to warn, protect, guard, and secure the safety of subject premises residents, invitees, and the public. Failing to police, patrol, guard, deter, and otherwise provide adequate protection for subject premises residents, invitees, and the public. What do you think? I hear people saying so ridiculous. Okay. People saying, wasn't he killed in the privacy of the apartment? Can't be in each apartment, Helen said. This is what I want. I want you guys to tell me what you think. So here's one question I have, and one thing I kind of thought about as I'm reading through this. Is it reasonable? I don't think any adult wants to be told who you can and can't have in your apartment, right? And I do think that's an important discussion to have around here. But after seeing her assault him, Courtney Clenney assault Obumseli in the elevator, after seeing some of the complaints, some of the injuries, should they have evicted her? Should they have kicked her out as a security or safety risk? That's a question I have in my mind. What do you guys think about that? I'm really interested in what you all think about this case. Because if they would have kicked her out, I think you can at least prove that then the crime would not have been committed on their premises. Did they choose her money, her fame, whatever, her payment, over the safety of people coming in their building, including Obumseli? So let's keep reading these. And again, this is pretty boilerplate. This is like all the things they could have possibly done wrong. Can you guys see anything else? Any other facts that would make you think the building could or should have done something to prevent this? Because you can't prevent somebody's boyfriend from coming over just because you think the boyfriend might be abusive. I don't know if a building can necessarily do that. And I realize this is the reverse, the girlfriend, and it's her building and things like that. But, I don't know how much control the building's going to have over that. But once they know that crimes are literally being committed on their premises and even in their public places of their premises, when do they need to step in and do something? Failing to hire and or retain adequate security personnel to patrol and or monitor the premises. Failing to have a sufficient number of guards in visible areas to deter crime. That's a good one, I think. Have more guards, have more signage up. Then maybe people would be less likely to have physical altercations in the public or private areas of this building. Failing to hire and or retain competent security guards to protect subject premises residents, invitees, and the public. Failing to properly train security guards to be reasonably skillful, competent, and or qualified to exercise appropriate and proper security measures. Failing to implement adequate security policies, security measures, and security procedures necessary to protect subject premises residents, invitees, and the public. Failing to take additional security measures after being put on notice that the security measures in force were inadequate. Failing to adequately provide an overall security plan that would meet the known industry standards and customs for safety in the subject premises. The preceding paragraphs A through K individually and or as a whole represent strict deviations from the existing standard of care with regard to security as recognized by similar businesses and properties in the local community. So that's always important too. What are the standards? What is the duty? A big question in the Alec Baldwin Rust case. What are actors supposed to do? We can all say, oh, I think they need to do this. I think they need to do that. But what is the industry standard? And I think that if this building was not in line with industry standards and those industry standards are beefier or heavier security, I think that could be an issue for them. All right, let me pause here for a second and answer a few of these questions. EJ, Caught up on the other 2 lives yesterday and saw the lovely post from Tori and all the amazing well wishes that followed. Thank you, Tori, Peter, and the chat. You know, I feel loved and blessed. Well, we feel loved and blessed when you are here, EJ. So thank you. Rita, grateful for you, Peter, and all the information you share. Thank you, Rita. Jesse Sue, Peter, would you take this case? Potentially. I mean, if I had security experts telling me that they did this wrong, they did that wrong, if I felt like they should have evicted her based on her lease, I haven't seen some of the documents stuff, so it's hard for me to tell, but I think that there potentially were some things the building could have done differently. She's going to be the main actor that caused the death, obviously. But I do think this is a viable case. I do. And I see a lot of you disagreeing with me, and that's okay. We'll continue to talk about it. And Emily says the deep pockets principle. Well, she may have deep pockets too, right? That could be something that's true. Karen, hey, Peter, I follow your channel since 1 year and just wanted to say thank you. I learned a lot of law and English too. Greetings from Austria. Stacy, unfortunately, this is how it works in these cases and even PI cases. If a man leaves a bar drunk and causes an accident and there is serious injury or killed someone, the bar will be sued. Not necessarily, Stacy. So there are actually rules and laws in place that the bar has to do something wrong to be sued. They have to overserve or serve someone that's a minor and not properly check their ID. They have to do something wrong to be sued. Just because you had a beer at a Hooters doesn't mean the Hooters is responsible if you go get in an accident. But if you couldn't stand up and they keep serving you and let you walk out and get in your car and drive off, then they could have broken some laws in that situation. And again, we want to have society be as safe as possible. People are going to make bad decisions, and we understand that, especially if they're going to hurt themselves. But going and getting in a car and killing someone else, if somebody else could have done something that should and had a duty to do something to prevent that, trust me, you want that. You want that. You want those laws. I don't mean you specifically, Stacy. I mean, generally, we want that. Mo, I feel like they would have to prove the security/building people were psychics. We don't know what was said. They could have been lied to. That's true. And I think what was said and what was reported is, again, something that's going to be important in this case. What did they know? What did the building know? Diane, he already knew what she was capable of. Stay away. So there may be an element of that. These businesses are legally allowed to point the finger at the victim in these cases, and we'll see if that's something that would happen. Jesse Sue, Peter, would this case ever go to a jury? So that's going to be the track that it's on, although my guess would be no. I think this one's going to get settled. All right, let's get back to the complaint. All right, Aleros Real Estate, through its agents and employees, negligently failed to have any procedures governing the inspection, supervision, and or security of the area where the subject incident occurred, or in the alternative, did in fact have procedures governing the inspection, supervision, and security of the area where the subject incident occurred, but implemented said procedures in a careless or negligent manner. They also failed to hire persons, employees, and or agents reasonably suited for providing, implementing, and or maintaining proper security. They also created said dangerous conditions on the premises and failed to warn subject premises residents, invitees, and the public, including Christian Obumseli, of the existence of said dangerous conditions, or in the alternative, did allow said dangerous conditions to exist for a length of time which a reasonable person would have disclosed the same. So here's what I'll say about this paragraph. If they knew the dangerous condition of Courtney Clenney and physical abuse was there, and especially aimed at Christian Obumseli, do they have a duty to do something about that? That's the big question that'll be asked of a jury in this case. And it seems like you all at least think she should have been evicted, and that's at least something that the building could or should have done, depending on what they knew. All right. Other ways they were negligent. There was inadequate and or non-existent visible deterrence. So, for instance, if you criminally assault somebody, you will be evicted. That sounds reasonable. The non-existence or inadequate or non-existent physical deterrence, meaning people and actually evicting people and throwing people out and stopping people from assaulting other people. Criminals could carry out physical assaults within the subject premises without fear of being caught, discovered, or prosecuted. There you go. So Courtney Clenney knew, this is what they're kind of arguing here. My security system has like a deterrent that it beeps, and these people are at my house now working on the pavers around my pool. So let me see if I can turn that off. Sorry about this. I don't know how to do it. Cameras. All right, deter off. There we go. For 1 hour. All right. Sorry about that. An atmosphere was created at subject premises that facilitated the commission of crimes against persons. So these are the ones that I think are important here. Crimes were being committed because assault and battery is a crime, even when it's female against male. But they created an environment potentially that she thought she could get away with whatever she wanted. And it eventually went too far, and he ends up dead. Pretty important. As a direct and proximate result of the defendant's negligence, the defendant is liable to the plaintiff for all damages to the estate and survivors and beneficiaries. So what are the damages? Past and future mental pain and suffering, past and future loss of support, expenses, medical care, funeral arrangements, Christian Obumseli's prospective net accumulations, what he would have made throughout his life, whatever estate or assets he had or could have inherited, any and all other damages. And like I said, same for count 2, 3, 4. But let's get to count 5. And I kind of already gave it away at the beginning, but there's not a intentional tort claim here. Oh boy. Somebody just sent me, one of my buddies just said, today on Pete's YouTube, Chris Oldham, a lawyer buddy of mine, just sent this to me and said, charges against Alec Baldwin have been dropped. So we're going to have to look at that after we're done with this complaint here. John, why don't you set up a redirect live at 3:40 to Alec Baldwin charges dropped, and we will just do it on the fly and talk about that together. So can you do that, John? All right. We will try not to get distracted here and just finish up this complaint. So the Courtney Clenney negligence claim is basically the same as the claim and count against all of the business entities, which is very interesting. And this is the one I have the most questions for Kim about. This is the one I want to focus in on. Why negligence for Courtney Clenney versus an intentional tort? If you already have negligence for all the building entities, why the same thing for Courtney Clenney? She was supposed to provide security for Christian Obumseli. She was supposed to provide some kind of deterrence to crime. She provided an atmosphere where criminals could assault people. She didn't provide the atmosphere. Now, she controlled the private residence, but I'm interested because this is, like I said, a good firm, really smart lawyer. And so I'm sure she has a good explanation for why she picked that cause of action. And there she is, Kim Wald. So a very interesting case. And I think that when we talk about whether or not something like this is going to be successful, we have to remember, like Jesse Sush said, most of these cases do not go all the way to trial. So Holly asked, dropped in housekeeper case for financial crimes. So I'm not going to look at the Alec Baldwin stuff just yet. I'm going to finish this case. We're going to end this video, and then you'll be redirected to an Alec Baldwin video at 3:40. That's the plan right now. Welcome, Goddess Sahara. Mo, could this then create precedent towards every city apartment complex whose residents commit crimes in? So, Mo, I will just tell you some breaking news here. The answer to that is it already exists. There are already standards and procedures in place that when crimes get committed in certain buildings, the buildings could be liable if they did not take appropriate security measures. So this already exists. This is not creating any new law. Mo, how would evicting her have avoided it? Eviction only causes more stress. How do we know it wouldn't have heightened the issue? So here's what I'll say. It may have heightened the issue. It may not have avoided it. But it wouldn't have happened on their premises. They would have shown that they have a zero tolerance for crimes being committed. And if she applied for a lease at another building and they asked, why did you get kicked out of the last building? And they reached out to the prior building and they would have said she assaulted somebody. Maybe she couldn't even get another lease. Maybe this would deter her from assaulting him in the future. Maybe it would deter her from battering him in the future. All of that to me is really, really important. And that's why businesses and people need to do the right thing. When they see crimes being committed, call them out. Don't allow them. Don't look the other way, regardless of what the people look like or if you think it's not that big of a deal. So this is all part of the discussion. And Bodie's saying this gives lawyers a bad name. I understand and people can disagree with me. That's fine. I mean, I don't know why anybody would have a problem if she would have got arrested for what happened in the elevator or if she would have gotten evicted for what happened in the elevator. I don't understand why people get upset thinking that certain areas should have security. That's fine. And people can get upset. I think once it hits you and once it hits somebody that you love, it changes your perspective sometimes about what could have been done to prevent it. And people ask these questions, what could have been done? In car accident cases, in trucking cases, it's just an accident, right? Was it just an accident that the truck driver did not know how to use the new GPS system, or that the truck driver wanted to get a few extra hours in, or that the truck driver wanted to text, his wife to tell her what time he would be home? It's tough. I mean, we have to prevent people from doing that. We have to. And this is one of the ways. This is one of the ways. My opinion, right? And that's why we're here to discuss stuff. And again, we're going to disagree with some stuff as it comes on. All right. So that's all we got on the Courtney Clenney civil lawsuit. If you do want to hear from this lawyer and ask her some of these questions, I'm sure she can answer a lot of them. And she has a lot of information we don't have. Probably other videos and text messages and pictures of what this abuse was actually like and what this building knew and what they shouldn't have done. Oh, Bodie, I understand. Bodie's always in the chat. We're cool. Everything's cool. I like the discussion. And I think it'd be interesting to hear from Kim and have you guys ask Kim questions. She's really smart. She'll be able to answer them and discuss kind of where we're at with this stuff. So I think that would be kind of cool to do in the future as well. All right. So I'm going to take off now. I'm going to take a couple minutes, look into this Alec Baldwin stuff, see what happened. We'll jump back on for 10 or 15 minutes. We'll discuss the Alec Baldwin criminal charges dropped. So yes, hit that like button on the way out. Turn on whatever you got to turn on for the redirect. We'll hit the outro and I'll see you on the other side. Thanks for watching another episode of The Lawyer You Know. If you enjoyed the episode, please hit the thumbs up and share with your friends who may be interested here on YouTube. And don't forget to subscribe. You can also follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, and TikTok at Tragos Law is our handle. And don't forget to listen to the Lawyer You Know podcast featuring new episodes every week. If you have a case you want to talk to us about, if it's a personal injury case, wrongful death, catastrophic injury, car accident, or slip and fall case, please email us at lawyeryouknow@gmail.com. And of course, all these links I just mentioned are included in the description below on this episode and every episode. So until next time, this is Peter Tragos, the Lawyer You Know.